Well, welcome to Millennial Meets Gen Z. I'm Allison, a millennial who grew up in the 90s surrounded by movies, TV, and pop culture that completely shaped who I am.
And I'm Hannah, I'm the Gen Z, and I did not grow up with any of this, but I really like seeing it all for the first time and just getting to learn more about the culture from the 90's.
Well, each episode we watch and talk about iconic movies and moments from the 90s. One of us is reliving the nostalgia, me, and the other is discovering it fresh, her. And we figure out why these stories still matter today. And I didn't even realize that. So grab your snacks, press play, and let's rewind. Now, before we get to this week's movie, I do want to say that we had posted a meme about over the Christmas holiday about how Jumanji is a Christmas movie because it's a joke a little bit because of the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the movie being at a Christmas party at the end. But I actually saw another connection over the holiday, and it really cemented it for me that this is a Christmas movie or Christmas adjacent movie, anyway. And I will die on this hill. So here's where the connection gets going. So I was watching It's a Wonderful Life. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I have not.
Okay. I was watching it for the first time, which is a little bit remarkable, but I have been avoiding this movie like the plague. I don't know why for my entire life. I actually do really love Jimmy Stewart. So this is like the only movie of his I have not seen. It was a little unlike me, but I've been avoiding this movie and I finally decided to watch it. And this is a 1946 Christmas classic with Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed. In the movie, George Bailey, he's lost all of his purpose. And with the help of an angel, he revisits the town as if he were never born. And he sees everything how it would be different without him ever existing. And so in the film, he runs through the town after the angel has like shown him what it's like. And so he doesn't exist. And he runs through the town and he discovers that the town has become a chaotic, I stole your word, place full of dive bars, strip clubs, and pool halls. And this is the exact same shot we see of Alan Parrish in Jumanji running through the town when he comes back and he sees what the town has become without him. It's full of dive bars, strip clubs, pool halls, and at the end, we also see that the final scene of Jumanji is actually of them singing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," which is the same. It's an homage to "It's a Wonderful Life." That's the end of "It's a Wonderful Life." So this was intentional, as was Alan's bloody lip in the movie at the end as well. Like it was a nod to George Bailey, who got a bloody lip, and after he was brought back by the angel to his real life, his lip was bleeding again, and he was like excited about, oh my gosh, it's bleeding again. I'm back to life. And so when Alan Parrish goes back to being a kid, like his lip is bleeding again, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm back to myself. So it was actually because of It's a Wonderful Life, and I never would have known that they borrowed some of that a little bit of nostalgia of their own into this movie when they were making it. So avoiding movies that came before us is how we miss really cool Easter eggs like this. So it'll be interesting as we keep going forward to like see if you recognize any nods to 90s movies in things that you see today, or references that they make.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty interesting. What the heck? That's cool too that you like watched the movie and then you were like, wait a second.
I was like, wait. And then I like paused it and I was like on the Googs and I was like, how is this? Is this a thing? And then I found like threads about how there's this connection between the two and they purposefully put that in the movie and made a nod to It's a Wonderful Life. So now I believe Jumanji actually is a Christmas movie. And it's not just because of the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the movie, but because they make multiple nods to one of the most classic Christmas movies, It's a Wonderful Life. So
That's super cool. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
it was. It
Yeah,
was
that like
really
cements
cool.
it. Oh my gosh, that's
So,
awesome.
well, this week's movie was Little Women from 1994. The synopsis is that the March sisters confront growing pains, financial shortages, family tragedies, and romantic rivalries in the mid 19th century Massachusetts. Jo struggles for independence and sometimes clashes with her beloved mother and her sisters Meg, Amy, and Beth. She also contends with her cranky Aunt March, their impulsive neighbor Lori, and the kindly linguistics professor Friedrich Baer. Um, which in the synopsis it says linguistics professor, but watching it again, he says philosophy. So I apologize. It's actually, he's a philosophy professor. I don't know how anyone got that confused, but it's possible that in the book he might have been in the linguistics. I don't quite remember, but let's stick with the book for just 1 second. So we discussed last week that you have not read Little Women. And Little Women, I'm going to give you a little bit of more of appreciation as we get into this movie. So Little Women was written in 1868 by Louisa May Alcott. It was actually originally two books, Little Women and Good Wives. It was published in 1869, which is Good Wives. And so 1868 and 1869, 1 year apart. And then they put them together later in 1880. And it does have two other sequels. It has Little Men and Joe's Boys, which are two sequels to that book. Now, Alcott herself thought the book was boring to write and to read. So if you kind of looked at the movie and thought it was a little bit boring, it is a little bit slow and it is a little bit boring, but it was really important because it was about the American woman at the time and her thoughts on all things that affected her in her time period. And that's exactly why it became really popular. It's what the American women needed. What was really special in this book is that the book included the topic of marriage and that the March sisters were equal partners in their relationships, which was unheard of. So this book was like really about transcendentalism and early feminism.
Yes, yeah, it did
Yeah,
have a.
yeah. And the book and the movie differ in timing of some details, but many of the good quotes from the book actually make it into the movie. So what were your overall thoughts?
So I did really like this movie. As you said, it was a bit slow, and I have a terrible attention span. So I was like, okay, gotta pay attention, like lock in, girl. But I did like the fact that the sisters, specifically Joe, didn't want something conventional. Joe didn't want to be in a loveless marriage where her life was given to some man. And I honestly, my favorite part was the conversation between her and Lori slash Teddy. He's called Lori because Teddy Lawrence, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
just wanted to make
Theodore
sure.
Lawrence. He goes by Lori, but she calls him Teddy.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I thought that was super sweet. But their conversation when he was actually, I'm not going to spoil it, but I really liked the conversation that we'll get into that depicted what she wanted and what she didn't want. I thought that was super powerful. And there were just a bunch of different scenes that I was like, oh my God, this is what the women of this time period had to deal with. That's horrendous. So I did really like it. I actually did not write down my rating, but I'm going to give this an 8. I'm going to give this an 8.
An eight? Okay, make sure you do write that down because we're going to create something that puts out where we're at so far.
Okay. We should do like averages. We should like average up my ratings.
Well, directed by Gillian Armstrong, who directed My Brilliant Career, Not 14 Again, and Charlotte Gray. Um, And then it was also based on the story by Louisa May Alcott that we said, but it was adapted by Robin Secord, who wrote and adapted many literary works for the screen. So things like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Memoirs of a Geisha, Practical Magic, which you love, Matilda, and the Jane Austen Book Club. So that's where the story gets adapted and brought to life, is by her, and she brings a lot of those things into it. So let's rewind. We open on a snowy town. Christmas wreaths are being hung up. Carriages are going by. Kids are dragging home their Christmas tree on a sled. We're introduced to the March family by Joe, narrating the backstory of that was the year that they had fallen into what they call genteel poverty. So they were like of upper society and had lost a lot of money, but they were still in their home. They were not completely well to do, but they were surviving. And then that the war had made things, fuel sources scarce. So that's important to mention. The March family, we'll get into our cast. So Marmee is the mother. Her name is actually Margaret as well, and she is played by Susan Sarandon. Now, Susan Sarandon is like one of my absolute favorite actresses. I just really admire everything that she's done. She's known for many things, including the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Thelma and Louise, which we've talked about when we talked about the Chicks Goodbye Earl song. Um, and fried green tomatoes, and we talked about practical magic, and it is kind of the same thing, that storyline with Thelma and Louise. She was also in The Client, Bull Durham, and one of my favorites is Stepmom. Such a good movie. We'll watch that one later. The Witches of Eastwick. She's in a really good movie that I've seen in science class called Lorenzo's Oil. She also plays the spider in James and the Giant Peach. So if you watch that movie, she's the spider. She's in a great movie called, yeah, she's the spider.
My favorite character,
Oh,
James
well,
and
there
Dark.
you go. So you would recognize her voice if you watched again. She's in Anywhere But Here, which is a great movie as well. The Banger Sisters, and more recently, I'm gonna like really point this out. She plays Eleanor Roosevelt in The 688, which is on Netflix. It is 100%, I feel, is 100% slept on, incredible movie. It kind of gained a little bit of traction when it came out, and a few people saw it, but like I don't think enough people know about the 688. That is a really, really good movie to watch on Netflix. And then she's also a knockout in The Nonas, which is also a newer movie. I think that's also on Netflix. Um, she plays opposite Vince Vaughn. So great, great movie. And then we have the oldest of the sisters is Meg, or also named Margaret. She's 16 in this when the story begins, and she's played by Trini Alvarado, who's known for The Frighteners, Stella, and The Staircase. I haven't seen any of those, to be honest with you. Um, then we have Jo, who's a year younger at 15. Josephine is her full name. And she is played by Winona Ryder, who's known for so many movies. But some of them include, some of my favorites include Beetlejuice, 1989's The Heathers, which you'll hear me quote a lot when I say things like, "What's your damage, Heather?" Um,
Yeah.
you'll hear me say that. Edward Scissorhands, which you've seen. She's in The Crucible, which they often show in school to go along with the book. Black Swan, and so many other things. But more recently, you'll see her on screen with Netflix as the badass mama, Joyce Byers in Stranger Things. So she is fabulous. And Winona Ryder has always been really great.
Yeah.
And then younger than them, we have Beth, who what is short for Elizabeth. She's 13 in the movie, and she is played by a little unknown called Claire Danes. She is the Juliet of Romeo and Juliet, Cosette in Les Miserables. She was in The Hours, Terminator 3, The Family Stone, alongside your favorite Sarah Jessica Parker. She was in Homeland and was recently the voice of Abigail Adams in The American Revolution, that Ken Burns documentary that I was lost a lot of sleep staying up watching last month. So as I was talking to you a lot about, I was like, I'm into the Ken Burns documentary. Gotta check out this Ken Burns documentary on PBS. Anyway, so she did a voiceover in that. Um, and the young Amy March is 12, and she is played by Kirsten Dunst, who big 90's star who is known for Spider-Man, apparently the one that you haven't seen because it came out before you were born. And a fact, honestly, that the Spider-Man movie is older than you gave me some anxiety today as I was reviewing my notes for this for this and the time frames. She was also in Interview with a Vampire, but some of my favorites, we just watched her in Jumanji. She's been in Tower of Terror. She's the voice of young Anastasia in Anastasia. She's in a great movie called All I Want to Do, which we'll be seeing later. She's in the movie Dick. Bring It On. She's known for Bring It On. Crazy Beautiful, which I recommended to you. Mona Lisa Smile, great feminist movie. Marie Antoinette, and Hidden Figures, which is also a great feminist movie. So, of that and everything so far, we'll get into the rest of the characters later, but who's your favorite character so far?
Oh, Jo, obviously. Jo. One, she's a writer, which loved that. Loved that whole thing about the storyline. Loved that. And she's independent. And I feel like as we know, I go for characters that are like, I don't know. I wouldn't say she's necessarily chaotic, but I think she's chaotic in her own right in the way that she was going against societal norms. And that, I just love that. I love women who are strong and powerful and able to kind of like escape the herd. And that's so hard to
Mm.
do, especially like I can't even imagine like in that time period, that must have been so hard to do. So the fact that she wanted her own life was very, very sweet. And I thought that was great. So I love her. I love her so much. She's great.
It's a
And
great character.
yeah, very well written, I will say. And I love Winona Ryder. I was introduced to her in Stranger Things and Edward Scissorhands. So yes, I love her.
Yeah. Well, they receive a letter, and we learn that their father is away in the war. He was a chaplain for the Union Army. We don't see him on screen until much, much later, but he is played by Matthew Walker, who has a small part in our next movie, Cool Runnings.
Oh,
Um, but he has been in things like Stargate SG-1 and The Wicker Man, among a few other surprising things I didn't even think about. And then they have a housekeeper named Hannah, who's played by Florence Patterson, who was in Bird on a Wire and It, the very scary It. Each of the sisters has their own talent. So Jo is the writer, as you said. She stays up late writing all these stories. Beth plays the piano and is the musician. Amy is the artist, and Meg is a great seamstress. She sews. Marmee is always helping the less fortunate out, taught that to her daughters, and at that morning is helping a German family, the Hummels. They have 6 children with one on the way. The dad is gone and they don't speak any English, probably making it really hard for them to get by and communicate in that time period. The March sisters decided to give up their food to the family and take it to them, which is very sweet. We later see the girls acting out stories written by Jo. They have written their own newspaper, and in this scene, actually is where we see Amy use the word awful, and Meg corrects her that she shouldn't use slang. And that, being the language nerd that I am, I hit the Googs and I was like, slang? Like, what is this? So, formerly Middle English, the meaning of it used to mean full of awe. And then in the 19th century, around the time that this was written, it actually began to mean very bad and ugly and became then an intensifier following that, meaning like awfully sad. Um,
oh,
so I thought it was
okay.
interesting because I'd never thought about awful being slang and
I
like
know, me either.
not
No,
proper.
yeah, no, I didn't even think twice about that. I was just like, oh, okay. But that makes a lot more sense. Okay. Good to know. Weird.
And
That's
then
very
Joe says the first rule of writing is you never write what you know. What do we think of the boy next door? Is kind of what she's asking. And then they all admire the new boy next door. Well, next door is Mr. Lawrence and his grandson Theodore, Laurie Lawrence. Laurie is played by the great Christian Bale, who many know as once the Batman. I'm Batman. And that's kind of the joke is that he does the deep voice. He's also known for movies like American Hustle, Treasure Island, Newsies, which is one of my absolute 90s favorites. He's the voice of Thomas in Pocahontas. He's in American Psycho, Shaft, Terminator Salvation, The Big Short, and more recently, a big popular one was Ford versus Ferrari. He's really great in that movie.
I think I saw him in American Psycho.
Okay. Yeah.
American.
Well, you'll have seen then one of the other characters in American Psycho as well, which we'll get to a little bit. But in their dreams for Christmas and the future, Amy wants to marry rich. Meg questions this and asking, doesn't she want like a kind man like their father? And she's like, no, I just pretty much want to be wealthy. And you can't, and it's not like she does say that it's not like you're just stuck with one thing. You can choose the rich man that you decide to marry. And Jo doesn't want any of this. She just wants to be a writer. Well, the next day, Jo and Meg are headed to the party, and Jo's dress is burned in the back from standing too close to the fire. So they tell her to stay to the wall. Meg will be wearing heels that are too small. They're from a donation bag. Jo tries to curl Meg's hair, and burns a strand off. It just reminds me of that, like there's like that viral video from a few years ago where the girl like curls her hair and then she leaves it for like 2 minutes and it just comes off. I was like, what?
No,
Yeah.
I've seen that. Oh my God, yeah.
I just was
Uh,
like, ah. And in my head, when I saw that on the viral video, I was like, have you not seen Little Women? Like, I was like, have you not? Do you not know?
yeah.
So they cover it up with Amy's bows, and the girls head to the party. Jo avoids all men coming her way and stays to the wall as to not have that burn show and not embarrass her family. And in process, she bumps into Lori. Lori's mother was a pianist, and she finds that out. She talks about how she wants to become a writer, and they dance around the side room jokingly. Meg ends up twisting her ankle with all the dancing, and they take Lori's carriage home. And Amy swoons over this, despite Meg's ankle being swollen. She's like, "You're so lucky." And she's just like, "Yeah, okay. I have a swollen ankle." So the girls play on the sled and with Lori outside in the snow. And Marmy tells Lori's tutor, Mr. Brooke, that the girls are just like boys and need exercise. We see that Meg works as a governess, and Amy has a fit about the limes that she owes at school. The girls trade limes for beads and things at school. And so Meg gives her a couple, like a quarter for some limes. Jo works and takes care of their great Aunt March, so she goes to her job and she is reading to Aunt March when she sees Amy crying outside. She was outed by another girl, and her teacher struck her across the hand for having limes in her desk. Her teacher told her it was as useful to educate a woman as it was to educate a female cat.
Uh-uh. Is that how women were actually viewed? As just like property and whatnot?
Yeah,
That's horrendous. I was hoping a little bit of that was exaggeration. That's horrible. What?
no, no,
Oh,
that's not an exaggeration. That's probably an understatement.
what a great world we were
That's
portraying.
why we didn't have the right to vote, and only men had the right to vote initially, is because they thought that we were a feeble mind and didn't have the smarts to be able to make decisions, which is the opposite of what is being taught in this story, which we'll get into a little bit. But Marmy writes, the feminist that she is, Marmy writes a stern letter for her teacher, and she takes her daughter out of school. Beth had already left school and had schooled herself at home. That was kind of the story. And Marmy puts Jo in charge of Amy's education. Jo is desperate to do things differently in her life, and Lori wonders what girls do all day. And the tutor says, over the mysteries of the female life, there's a veil best left undisturbed. Like we shouldn't know. Now, Mr. Brooks, the tutor, he's played by Eric Stoltz, who's known for his role in Pulp Fiction, Mask, The Butterfly Effect, and Some Kind of Wonderful, A Murder of Crows, and Jerry Maguire. He's also in the movie Say Anything, which I don't recall, and now I want to go back and watch Say Anything and see what he plays. And he's also a director. Well, the March Girls are performing their theatrical stories when Laurie is invited. He's been kind of hiding behind the scenes, waiting for Jo to introduce that he's going to be included in their theatrical plays. He proposes that they share a mailbox for their letters, stories, and secrets, and they start treating him more like a brother. Jo and Meg then later are going to the theater with Laurie and Mr. Brooke, and Amy is devastated she doesn't get to attend. Jo assigns her homework, and Amy threatens Jo that she'll pay for not
Oh
taking
yeah.
her and giving her homework. We later see after the theater, Meg is walking with Mr. Brooke, arm in arm. Jo and Laurie follow behind and seem to kind of be a good match at the time. They're both unconventional and a little unruly. They don't follow the rules. And then Jo comes back to find that Amy has burned her manuscript in retaliation.
That's horrible. That's awful.
Especially, she doesn't have copies. I mean, this is the
No,
only version there is.
no. That's so mean too. I don't know, when I saw that, I was like, no matter how mad you are, you don't burn someone's life work. Like, that's awful.
That's what mattered to her. So she was trying to hit her where it hurt. And that's the thing sometimes I think with siblings is they know where all your hot buttons are.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
The next day, Joe and Lori go skating, and Amy follows along. They ignore Amy, and Amy puts on her skates and falls into the frozen lake. They go and rescue her, and they forgive each other. In the spring, Meg is attending Sally Moffat's coming out party, and we see Aunt March scolding Marmee about her parenting and how Meg's marriage choices and the lack of a society debut, which is like another coming out party for her. Aunt March is actually played by Mary Wicks. You'll see her in Sister Act when we get to that movie. She also played Emma in White Christmas. So if you've ever seen a White Christmas, she is in that movie. She's in a really good series called The Father Dowling Mysteries, which I love, and often appeared in things like in episodes of The Lucy Show, Dennis the Menace, The Danny Thomas Show, The Mickey Mouse Club, things from the 50s and 60s.
Right. Oh,
In the movie, the girls are bullying Meg for her dress, her family, and her family's views on like what's right. So like the inclusion in education, anti-slavery, child labor, things that their family is completely against and is like outright has a stance against it. They kind of bully her about that and how she won't wear silk because of the child labor. But we see later at the party, Lori spots Meg in a dress made of silk, not the one she came in. And she's not really herself. She's all dolled up. They like put her into it and she's kind of playing that role.
yeah.
He then scolds her and apologizes. And then the rumors start about the two of them being in love because they are just fond of each other in the fashion that they hang out together. This is kind of when I realized that this was a great story about introducing feminism is in the next scene. And I never really recognized that as a kid before. Like you don't really fully understand that as a kid, especially when you're brought up to kind of be a little feminist. You don't really think of it as different. But now from like historical context and looking back, so Meg tells her mom and Joe that she really liked being pretty and fitting in because now that they're poor and they have all these views, like they don't really fit in. And Marmee says, if you feel your value lies in being merely decorative, I fear that someday you might find yourself believing that's all you really are. Time erodes all such beauty, but what it cannot diminish is the wonderful workings of your mind, your humor, your kindness, and your moral courage. These are things I cherish so in you. It's a very great line that's in the book, and it was
Really,
delivered. Yeah, it's in the book, and it was delivered so beautifully by Susan Sarandon.
I agree. I agree. I think the whole just theme of the fact that they had very progressive views and were all about women's rights and the fact that Marmee stayed, she stood on business with that. She was like, I'm not changing up. Like, if you want to be pretty. But if you don't want to be pretty, don't be pretty. And that's a great lesson for people to learn. You don't have to be super feminine, even if you're a woman. But if you want to be feminine, you can be feminine. It's personal
Yeah,
choice.
right. But also that's not all you are. Like
Yeah.
it's not the only thing that you can be. You can be so many more things. And I think like back in the day that this was written and in the time period that this is taking place, like they didn't anticipate women to have anything else to offer other than their beauty. And
Yeah.
that was it. Well, Lori is heading to Harvard and swears nothing's going to change, and Joe is jealous of not going as well. She's not really upset that he's leaving as much as she's just upset she doesn't get to go and get that education. Joe hears about Mr. Brooks going to work for Lawrence and Lawrence firm, Lori's grandfather's company, and that he's also interested in Meg, and that makes her furious. She's outraged. But then they receive a telegram that Mr. March has been wounded. Marmee is going to head to his side, and Mr. Brooke is going to escort her in her travels to Washington, D.C. For the train ticket, Joe, not wanting to ask Aunt March for the money, we learn that she sold her hair. I think it's really cute that later she then cries about it, which is, I mean, it's pretty accurate for any time if you ever cut your hair off, like, it's a shock.
Oh yeah, that's such a woman thing too, especially when you go from, like long hair to short hair. It's definitely a culture shock. You sit there in the mirror and you're like, oh, I don't look like myself, and then within like 3 days you're used to it.
Yeah, especially because like in her case, it wasn't really a choice, it was a necessity to like
Yeah,
earn money. So I just thought that was really cute because I've definitely felt that when I've chopped my hair off and mine was a choice. So um But Beth has been helping a poor family, the Hummels, that we were introduced to in the beginning, taking care of the sick boys. Meg and Joe have been working to support the family while Marmy's away, and Beth takes what she can to the Hummels, and she ends up holding their sick baby, unfortunately. Joe checks the Lori Marchester's mailbox to find a pair, to find that Lori's home for the weekend. She receives a letter that said she sold one of her stories for $5, and she's super excited about it. She runs in to find Beth hanging her head over the piano. The Hummel baby is sick, she said. She has scarlet fever. Meg and Joe had already had it, but they have to send Amy away to Aunt March's because she's never had it. And she doesn't want to die. Amy doesn't want to die because she's never been kissed. So, like, typical of her in that attitude. So Lori promises to kiss her before she dies. Mr. Lawrence brings over his personal physician to examine Beth, and Lori sent for Marmy and paid for her train ticket, which is a really nice thing to do. And Beth was not doing well, but her mother knew exactly what to do to take care of her, and she starts to get better. The fever, though, had weakened her heart forever, and Amy was able to finally return home. We see that Christmas comes, and they have a surprise for Beth. They got her a piano gifted by Mr. Lawrence, and they gather around the piano and sing. At this point, she's kind of an invalid. She's like just kind of she's sickly and she stays at home. She doesn't get to go out and do a lot of things.
The way Marmy cured her with like at home like natural remedies, I thought was super cool. I was like, oh my God, that's super interesting that natural remedies have that much of an effect. But then again, it was in the 1800s, so I guess that's really all they had. But that's super cool that that she was able to heal her.
Yeah, I mean, later it was cured by scarlet fever was cured by amoxicillin and penicillin, so antibiotics. But it could cause, like, if you didn't get to it fast enough, it can cause rheumatic fever. It can cause like, which is like inflammation. It can cause like a lot of other long-term issues. And it's actually related to your favorite strep.
Oh, really? Oh God.
Mhm. Yeah, it was a little worse at the time without antibiotics, but yeah, scarlet fever was known for turning your tongue like a strawberry color and like making it look kind of like a strawberry, and you would have like a rash and you would have like yeah, a lot of issues, but it's related to strep supposedly.
That's interesting. What? That's scary. Ugh.
You're fine. You're good. I know you've had it a lot, but you're good. So Meg has been proposed to by Lori's former tutor, John Brooke, and Joe does not ever want to get married. Their father comes home accompanied with Mr. John Brooke. 4 years later, we see everyone celebrating the marriage of Meg and John. Joe is definitely pouting. Amy is painting well, but is encouraged to go to Europe to get more experience. Now, Amy's the only character who's replaced with an older version. She is now played by Samantha Mathis, who is known for her role in Broken Arrow and American Psycho opposite Christian Bale. And she's also in the Super Brothers movie, which we talked about before. Um, so Teddy is back and wants Joe to marry him. He is supposed to move to London, and Joe does not want to become a wife, and his heart breaks. She refused his proposal.
Oh my God, the scene where he's like about to walk away and you can see like the tears in his eyes. I thought that was so beautiful because that was acted out so well. That was so realistic. I was like, I felt so bad for him, but
Yeah.
also I don't know why he thought Joe would marry him, knowing that she's not does not want that.
Well, I think it's because he has so much affection for her, and she
Yeah.
doesn't want to be adored. She wants to be understood.
Yeah.
And
And
and that's what she finds later, not to spoil it, um but but that's what I mean, and that happens a lot. I think this still happens. Like it's a common classic blunder of somebody falling in love with their best friend because they adore them, but they don't really get them on that level that they need to be understood. So, but Teddy is so obviously she refuses his proposal. He leaves. Amy is going with Aunt March to France. She was asked because now she's Aunt March's caretaker. And Joe is so jealous that she can't get away. Amy is uh Aunt March like wants her to also make a good match while they're over there as her companion. So Marmee encourages Jo to go out and embrace her own liberty and see what wonderful things will come of it. So she heads to New York City and she serves as a governess there in a boarding house. She hopes to be a published writer, but can't get the attention of publishers as a woman. So she was having a lot of trouble. She meets a professor from Berlin who is staying at the boarding house, Professor Bear, and he's now a tutor here in the United States. She talks of her parents being transcendentalists, which is where we learn like where all of her values have come from, and they become friends over a shared love of books and poetry. There's a conversation about voting and a woman's right to it, and Jo interjects. I find it poor logic to say that because women are good, women should vote. Men do not vote because they are good. They vote because they are male, and women should vote not because we are angels and men are animals, but because we are human beings and citizens of this country. She is like saying, we're not like the people who were fighting for her to vote, these guys in this discussion, they were like, oh, women should vote because they're so like angelic and up on this high pedestal and they're trying to like be nice and compliment, but at the same time she's like, no, it's because we're humans and we also live in this country and should be able to make decisions just like you. Like we just
A
want to be
hundred.
equals.
Yeah, and respected because they weren't respected. That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Like I don't want you to elevate me and put me on a pedestal. I want to be an equal partner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
So
what feminism gets a bad rep, I feel.
Louisa May Alcott was a reformer. She was a great advocate for women's suffrage and equality, so for voting rights. She actually used to go door to door canvassing and she would write papers about how women should have the right to vote. She was 100% a feminist, fighting for the idea that women were individuals and they had their own ambitions, not just domestic figures in the home. And so she wrote the part of Jo after herself. So this is a semi autobiographical story.
Oh gosh. Wait, that's awesome. Especially
Kind
if
of
that,
puts a new spin on it, right?
oh my God, it does. That also makes sense because Jo was so well written and you could like sense her emotions and all of that. So that makes sense. Okay. Hmm.
And which is why she also thought this was a little bit of a boring story because it's her life. She's like, oh, there's nothing really that interesting. This is just my life.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, in the movie, Jo gets her stories published as Joseph March, which is a lot of women got published under a male pen name initially. She published thrilling stories to earn money to buy a new coat for her sister Beth, as an example. Friedrich Hurt, the professor, he offends her by questioning her subject choices and tells her to write what makes her happy. As an apology, he takes her to the opera where they sit on the catwalk to see it from above and he translates the opera. It's very romantic. And we can see they start having this romance develop. We see later then Beth painting in the garden when party boy Laurie appears. He has taken a leave from the firm to work on his music. Doesn't really look like he's working on his music when he's stumbling around. He inquires with Aunt March if Amy and his former friend Fred Vaughn are yet engaged, and they aren't. We later see him present Amy with hairpins, and he wants to court her. He wants to be part of the March family. You can still see though that he's a little heartbroken, and she like does not want it. She's like she wants to marry for money, first of all, and she doesn't want to fall in love with any man who loves someone else.
Yeah.
She sends him to get himself right. Like, no, you go get yourself right. You figure out your family situation. You bring me what I deserve.
Yeah.
So Laurie writes Amy that he has gone to London to be worthy of her. Jo gave her manuscript to her friend Friedrich, but he didn't like that she's writing things she doesn't know. She gets upset and goes back to her room where she finds a telegram. Now, back at the March residence, she finds pregnant Meg and Beth is dying. Jo and Beth share a touching moment about how she's not afraid to die, and Beth passes. We see Hannah putting petals on all of Beth's things after her room has been cleaned. And Amy can't come home because Aunt March is sick and she's not allowed to travel by herself. It's not proper to travel as a woman by herself. Jo writes to Laurie about Beth's passing and asks him to come home. He instead goes to Amy, and where they are quite the item. Jo packs away Beth's things in the trunk in their attic, where Beth had saved many of Joe's writings and including the sisters' newspapers. And then Joe starts to write the story of the March sisters. Meanwhile, Meg has twins, a boy and a girl. Teddy comes home and introduces his wife, Amy, where they were married. In order for them to travel back together, they got married. Quite a shock to Joe, but she takes it gracefully. March passes, and it's suggested that the house be turned into a school. It's a very good thought by Marmee. Jo gets a delivery that her book is being published. It was delivered by her friend, the professor, who misunderstands that the March sister that was married wasn't her. She confesses that her sister had gotten married and asks him to stay to help her turn her aunt's house into a school for anyone that wants to learn. He asks if she'll have him, and she agrees. He says he has nothing to give her, his hands are empty, and then she slips her hand in his and says, "Not empty now." And that is the end. So what I miss?
Oh my God, it was it's so sad. Okay, first off, I was kind of weirded out that Lori and Amy got together, and then I like searched up how old she was, and I was like, oh, they're only like 3, 4 years apart. That's not that bad. So like initially I was like, okay, because like the actors and actresses looked so different in age. I was like, was he grooming her? And then I was like, okay, no,
No.
not with It's like, yes, okay. So the snow is so funny. I just said, why are they in the room dancing when Joe and Lori were dancing? And then I said, this is very cute. Because I really liked that scene. I thought that was very sweet. And that's something I would do. Like if I was at a ball, I would like run into the room and be like, nope, I'm good. Nope. I also, I was very mad at Amy for burning Joe's manuscript, but I did feel bad for Amy when Joe was screaming, I hate you at her. And when she screamed, I hate you, you're dead, you're nothing. I thought that was really messed up a little bit. I was like, okay, I get you're upset, but don't call someone nothing and don't say you hate them even. Like you don't, that's your sister. But
They're children. Like
yeah,
they're young.
yeah. And so that it's a little bit understandable, but that like really hit me and I was like, oh my God, that's yeah. I'm in that moment I was like, I'm kind of glad I don't have a sister. I did like when Joe sold her hair. I'm not gonna lie, I did not like the haircut. Was not the biggest fan of the haircut, but also because of why she did it, very sweet. But like the haircut, when I first saw it, I was like, oh God, they did not do a good job. I felt bad, but yeah. When I believe it was, I probably should have written down who said this, but I think it was Lori who said this. When he said, Joe, I've missed you so, I felt really bad, especially because it seemed that he was in love with her the entire time,
Mhm.
basically. Male
Right.
uriners, male uriners. And then I'm so mad people don't dress like this. Bring back ball gowns. Make them casual.
No, girl, watch a video. Well, first of all, there's a lot of people that wear them on TikTok and Instagram, and watch a video about how many freaking layers, and then also all the supportive undergarments you have to wear to like hold up the weight of the skirt itself. And if you've ever put on a ball gown or even seen like any of the shows, well, they're probably not on anymore, but there used to be shows about like my quinceanera or whatever, and they wear these gowns that like bruise their hips. That's what they used to do, is it would bruise your hips if you didn't have the right supportive underskirts. They make wedding dresses like that, and I'm telling you, don't get one unless you want to have bruises because they weigh a ton. So
Jeez, okay, so maybe I take that back, but I think dresses like that are so pretty. And there was one dress specifically, it was blue. I don't remember who was wearing it, but I was like obsessed with it. I think it was Joe who was wearing it. It was blue and it had little ruffles right here.
so that
I
was
thought,
Meg. So Meg and then Amy wears it later. So
yeah, this is the original.
older Amy, yeah, Meg wears it, and that's the one that they take her out of. They're like, oh, it's like forget me nots. And they're like, oh, I'll take you to get silk. And then you'll see Amy wearing it later when she's painting on the cup. Yeah, it's a very pretty, I like the pretty color of it. It was a very pretty dress. But yeah, the only thing I do like, and it's not in the movie, but if you watch some of these videos, is like, and I don't know which time period did it, but they used to have like this little, like almost like an apron or like it was essentially a pocket because you didn't have pockets on anything. So it was like a pocket that went under your skirts that you could store stuff in. Um, which I kind of wish that I had pockets, like hidden pockets. I like
Yeah,
so I like regular pockets, but it'd be nice to have hidden pockets that I can put things that I only know about in them. I don't
yeah.
know now that I'm saying it out loud what I would put in them, but be like, what is it that I need a pocket that's hidden for? And I'm like, no idea. But like maybe the squirrel in me wants to like put shiny trinkets or something. I just like I have no idea what I would actually put in these pockets. Yeah, we're gonna have to we're gonna have to talk about this later. I need to maybe get a therapist and start talking about my pocket obsession, my secret pocket obsession. Um, but yeah, I feel like I would put like I would. I might be part squirrel. I like little like trinkety things. And so I'm just thinking like maybe I would put something that I feel is like lucky or like trinkety like in my hidden pocket. Forget it. Okay, moving on. Okay.
God, I'm gonna cry. That was so funny. Allison, is this
I
keeping
don't
up?
know why, but the
No.
thought of a hidden pocket, I was like, I've got all these little. Okay, if you come to my house, you would see that I've got like all sorts of little trinkety things that are just like I don't know. Like I said, that's why I was like, that was the realization. I mean, this was a live realization that you're seeing of me going, maybe I'm a squirrel. Um, or a crow. I mean, crows do that too, right? They store little shiny things. Yeah, that's apparently me. I do that. I need to like be a minimalist and I'm not. I need extra pockets though. I also don't like carrying a purse. And so like having extra pockets is always helpful. And yeah,
Yeah,
anyway,
purses are kind of inconvenient at times. It's
yeah,
like,
I don't. Only time I carry a purse is when it's like supposed to be something like fashionable, like if I'm going to an event and I want to take like a very fun and funky purse.
yeah.
It's usually not like purposeful. There's nothing in it. Like it can barely hold anything. Usually it can hold like a lip gloss and maybe my phone if I'm lucky. Like I have like it has to be stylish. So anyway, but I want to point out some differences in the story of Joe and Melissa and Louisa May Alcott. So Louisa actually never married. So unlike Joe, she never got married. She actually chose independence and she became the primary provider for her family. She was making well, she saw marriage as a potential loss of self, and she's a quote that like she prefers to paddle her own canoe. She wanted that
Oh,
financial independence, and boy, did she get it. She out earned all of her male counterparts during her last 20 years. She was making like $200,000, which
my
is,
God.
and in that time, which would be millions today, because of these stories. So she tried like publishing, I think, other stories that were more fanciful and other things, but it's when she wrote what she knew that like
Yeah.
people really grasped onto it. And so she thought this stuff was boring because it was her life, but yeah, she based all of her characters on people that were in her life, and her sisters and her family. Um, and then she actually did care for her sister's daughter after her sister passed away. So she helped raise her niece. And in the book, the first book, Little Women, so because it was originally two books, like Joe didn't marry in the first book, she turns down Lori, turns down the proposal for independence, and that was not received well. So she ended up marrying her off. She wasn't going to marry her off, but she ended up marrying her off, like for in the Good Wives, yielding to the popular demand because that's kind of what they wanted to see. They wanted to see her have a companion, despite Louisa not. So now, the
Nice.
one thing in the book I don't like, and this is kind of how the spinoffs start, is that um, the school that Jo starts with her professor husband is a school for boys. And like in the movie, she's like, oh, it's a school for all. But in the book, it's a school for boys, which kind of seems contradictory to everything she's written in the book about educating women. But it's actually supposed to be because of her love of nurturing boys and like allowing her to be that gender non-conforming self of she's allowed to then fill this role that's accepted in society, which is where the next two books then kind of come in. That's where the Little Men and the Joe's Boys are all about the boys at the school and moving forward.
Maybe I'll like pick up this book when I go to Barnes and Noble tomorrow and get it.
Yeah, it's good. Well, there's three books, so but yeah, take a look and see. And she has two sons of her own too. So, but our next watch is Cool Runnings. We're completely just changing, turning the tables. The two movies have nothing to do with each other, but it is going to be a good one for the snowy season. Cool Runnings is available on Disney. It's on Disney Plus. You can go on there. Now, Cool Runnings was a movie that I was introduced by my older brother. I will admit that there are a lot of amazing quotes, but I will not spoil the movie by telling you what they are. Um, but our next pod, you'll be definitely hearing them. The synopsis is that four Jamaican bobsledders dream of competing in the Winter Olympics. So they're from Jamaica and they want to compete in the Winter Olympics despite never having ever seen snow. With the help of a disgraced former champion desperate to redeem himself, the Jamaicans set out to become worthy of Olympic selection and they go all out for glory. So this is technically a sports movie and I love it. And this one always makes me think of my older brother. So because of like being introduced to this movie from him. Um, so with that being said, you haven't heard of Cool Runnings probably.
Oh,
No.
I haven't even heard of it. That it sounds. Is it a funny sports movie?
It is a funny sports movie. Yeah, I mean Jamaican bobsledders. So it's like people who have never seen snow competing in the Winter Olympics. How
Okay.
It's all about how do they train? How do they find people to compete in the Winter Olympics? How do they train in Jamaica when there's no snow? How do they, like, who do they have? What do they form? So, it's a really great story. Can't wait to watch it. You'll get a kick out of it. It'll be a great watch for people. It's good to see at least once. And it's perfect for the season. So that's what we're moving into. So hopefully everybody watch along with us. Check it out on Disney Plus. Um, and we'll talk about that next time. But before we go, it is the new year when we are broadcasting this. So what are your New Year's resolutions?
One, I want to be healthier. I feel like I've had a very sedentary life recently. I mean, like I tried doing yoga and Pilates and things like that, but like recently I've been a little inconsistent with like all the holidays going on. So I want to get back into that. And I also just want more of like a personal resolution. I want to try to be more communicative with like the people around me and be more like upfront when I'm like upset and things like that. Because I feel like I have the tendency, specifically with like my friends and my boyfriend, to kind of be very like reserved and have a hard time communicating.
Mm-hmm.
So my boyfriend and I had a whole conversation about it. And I was like, this is going to be my New Year's resolution. And he was like, yes, that's so exciting. And I was like, yes. How about you?
Well, those are great resolutions. I wouldn't have guessed that you weren't communicative, but it's just
No,
because I talk to
specifically
you
with
every
men.
day.
With men, no. Like with my boyfriend, oh God, it's
Yeah, I get
yeah, he
that.
has
I
to
get
pry
that.
information out of me.
So my biggest one is I am going to be reading more. I hardly ever do anything, and I've already been saying this, and because I've already been starting. I've ordered a whole bunch of books, and I'm going through them slowly, but going through them. But I hardly ever take the time to do one task. And when you read a physical copy of a book, you can't. There's like nothing else you can do at the same time. I might be able to like be on a treadmill, but even then, I'm not sure if I'm coordinated enough to read and treadmill or like walk at the same time. So that might not be a good idea. But it is like a dedication that I have of just turning my mind to one thing, focusing on it. And so I've been reading a little bit every evening, and getting back into, because I used to just read like crazy. So I want to get back into that. Um, I'm obviously like watching more things. I'm kind of excited about revisiting my past as we go through this podcast. So I'm excited about that. But that, and then, just also like being healthy and getting out and going back to the gym. I'm probably going to be starting that a little early, probably tomorrow as well. As everybody should, be healthier. It's always a goal, I think, for everyone. But yeah, I always also, I just have like, I have a lot of things. I add things to my, this sounds so crazy, but I add things to my bucket list every year. And I try to like tackle past things on my bucket list like every year. So I was actually one of the things on my bucket list, it sounds so stupid, but was to watch It's a Wonderful Life. And I just checked that off because I was like, everybody talks about it. I've been avoiding it. Like, why? I need to watch it just once. And I was like, okay. So I like turned it on and I was like, oh, I actually don't hate this movie. It's great. I don't know why I didn't do it before. So I usually like, there are things that I want to just have learned or to experience or to do. And I usually just try to tackle them. So it's led to a very eclectic life of random, like I went to a sandcastle class once, all sorts of random things because I'm like, oh, I want to learn this, and then I find it and then I go. So yeah, so hopefully I'll check off some more things on my bucket list, but those are my like basic goals.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think we're gonna have a great year and get to podcast, which is gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and this is our new thing of this year. So now we're going to be experienced by this time next year in our podcasting and maybe won't have as many technical issues, but we'll,
Yeah,
we'll
very true.
well, that's it for us for this episode of Millennial Meets Gen Z. Thank you for hanging out with us. Don't forget to follow the podcast, leave a review if you're enjoying it, and come find us on Instagram and Facebook. And hopefully, we'll get to post some more stuff to YouTube Shorts and Reels and TikTok. But find us for clips, photos, all the moments that didn't fit into this episode, all the crazy things that we said and want to repeat. And we will see you next time. So be kind and rewind.
Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for
Happy
watching.
New Year.